At its birth, the internet was envisaged as a great advancement in free society. Decentralised, crowdsourced and open, it would share knowledge across humanity. As it grew, every one of us would own a platform and our voice. Of course, since then, bandwidth has increased massively, which means that now we experience a rich variety of media. Storage and compute have increased many orders of magnitude, which have created the power of big data, and generative capabilities have emerged quite recently, creating a whole new virtual world. Services no longer simply route us to what we were searching for, but offer us a personalised menus of rich media, some from human sources and some generated to entertain or meet demands. And we're now just starting to recognise the alarming trends that we're discussing today, that rich media and content has become increasingly harmful, that compute, storage and big data power is being used to collect, predict and influence our most private values, preferences and behaviours. Generative AI is immersing us in a world of reconstituted news, custom facts and bots posing as people. It increasingly feels like a platform now owns every one of us and our voice. Harms are dangerously impacting our young people. I'll read some research from the Centre for Countering Digital Hate to illustrate some of the problems. On YouTube, the next video algorithm was found recommending eating disorder content to a UK-based 13-year-old female account. In just a few minutes, the account was exposed to material promoting anorexia and weight loss, and over half of the further recommended videos were for eating disorders or weight loss content. On TikTok, new accounts for teens were found recommending self-harm and eating disorder content within minutes of scrolling the For You feed. Suicide content appeared within 2.5 minutes, and eating disorder content within 8. Accounts created with phrases like lose weight received 3 times as many of these videos as standard teen accounts, and 12 times as many self-harm videos. These are not isolated incidents. They show the scale and the speed at which harmful material can spiral into exponential immersion in worlds of danger for young people. On X, formerly known as Twitter, and a trigger warning for anybody who has been affected by the absolutely appalling Bonsai Beach Hanukkah attack. Following the Manchester synagogue attack, violent anti-Semitic messages celebrating and calling for further violence were posted and left live for at least a week. And ChatGPT has been shown to produce dangerous advice within minutes of account creation, including guidance on self-harm, restrictive diets, and substance misuse. I'm really grateful, actually, to my honourable friends for raising the topic of pornography. I've had the immense privilege to be at an event with a room full of men who spoke really openly and vulnerably about their experiences with pornography, how it affected their sex lives, their intimacy with their partners or wives, their dynamics of power and respect, and how it infused all of their relationships in daily life. They said things like, we want to see it, but we don't want to see it. And if adult men, and it would seem to me from this experience at least, perhaps the majority of adult men are finding it this hard to deal with, how can we begin to comprehend the impact it's having on our children who are falling across it accidentally? Mr. Pritchard, this can all feel too big to deal with, too big to tackle. It feels immense and almost impossible to comprehend and to address. And yet to some, at the same time, the Online Safety Act feels like a sledgehammer cracking a nut. It is, in fact, I would say, a sledgehammer cracking a deeply poisonous pill. But that pill is in amongst a veritable chemistry lab of other psychoactive substances that it completely misses, and it will always be too slow and inaccurate to hit. We must do better. We must keep it, but we must do better. I'm an engineer, and I'm very aware that since the Industrial Revolution, when physical machines suddenly became immensely more powerful and complex, a whole world of not just regulations, but technical standards has been built. It infuses our daily lives, and you can barely touch an object in this room that hasn't been built and verified to some sort of standard, be it British, European, or a global ISO standard for safety. To me, this is a model that we should be ready to reflect in the digital world. A product can be safe or unsafe. We can validate it to be safe. We can design it to be safe. We can set criteria that let us prove it. We've shown that in our physical world since the Industrial Revolution. So how do we now begin to put away the big blunt instrument of regulation when the problem seems so big and insurmountable?
Will my honourable friend give way?
I will.
I thank my honourable friend. The Ofcom officials came before the Speakers' Conference, of which I'm a member, so I declare that interest. And they spoke about Section 100 of the Act that gives Ofcom the powers to request certain types of information on how, for example, the recommender systems work on their algorithms. Unfortunately, they said this could be complicated and challenging to do. But one of the things that they spoke about very convincingly was that they want to require, in fact, they can require those companies to put information, particularly about the algorithms, in the public domain that will help researchers. And that could really help with the points that he's making about creating regulations that really can improve the safety for our population.
I thank my honourable friend for his remark, and he's entirely right. In my own experience as an engineer, where we were engineering products for safety, very critically for safety, it was absolutely incumbent upon us to be fully open with those regulating and certifying our products for approval to show them everything we'd done. We had numerous patents on our technology that was new and emerging and had immense potential and value, and yet we were open, utterly open, with those notified bodies to ensure that our products were safe. Similarly, I was fortunate enough to be able to convene industry to share the key safety insights that we were discovering early on to make sure that no mistake was ever repeated and that the whole industry was able to innovate and develop in a safe way. So I really thank you for his comment, and I strongly agree there is no excuse for a lack of openness when it comes to safety. So how do we move forward? I put it that the first step is to start to break down the problem. And I found it helpful to describe it in 4 broad categories. Harms or hazards that apply to the individual simply through exposure. This would be content such as pornography, violence, images of or about abuse. And then hazards that would apply to an individual, but by virtue of their interaction. So this would be addictive user interfaces. It might be personified GPTs. And I'd just like to make a comment that we cannot begin to comprehend the potential harms that could come to human beings psychologically when we start to promote attachment with a machine. And there is no way we can have evidence to inform how safe or harmful that would be, but I would suggest that all the knowledge that probably exists in the psychological and psychiatric community would point to that being extremely risky and dangerous. And also recommendation algorithms, of course, that we've discussed at length. And then also harms that apply at a societal level that affect us collectively. So, for example, by exposure, these would be misinformation or echo chambers of opinion, which have expanded now not only to be echo chambers of opinion, but actually echo chambers of reality, where more and more people's worldview is being informed by what they see in these spaces that are actually highly customised to their existing bias. And we've never been in a situation... Oh, I will, thank you.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way on that point. I've met constituents to understand their concerns and their ambitions for online safety legislation, and there's a clear need to balance the protection of vulnerable users against serious online harms with the need to protect lawful speech and to pragmatically review and implement the Act. On that point that he's making there about equipping particularly our younger people with the skills in order to scrutinise what's real and what's fake, would he agree with me that although we do have online safety within the national curriculum, we need to be supporting our teachers so that they can provide consistent teaching of children across schools up and down our country, so they have the critical skills, the critical thinking ability, in the same way that they might have around road safety or relationships or consent, but when it comes to online safety in particular?
Before I can I just ask everybody who has their phone on silent?
Thank you, Mr. Pritchard. Yes, I thank my honourable friend for his comment, and I agree with him. In fact, I was fortunate enough to meet with Worcestershire Youth Cabinet, who are based in my constituency. And one of their main concerns was their online safety. And I was really struck by their comments to us, because we were ready for them to ask for more support in navigating the online world, and that is not what they asked for. They said, please don't try to support us anymore. Support our adults to support us. We have trusted adults, we have parents, we have teachers. We want to work with them to navigate this journey. Please help them so they can help us. So I thank him very much for that. It's an excellent point. I will.
He's making an excellent speech, and I think really getting to the heart of some of the tensions here. He does still seem to lean quite strongly into how the algorithms almost are self-learning, that they catch on to what people share organically and then double down on that as a way to commercialise the content. Does he accept, though, that there are some platforms that exist, some widely used platforms that exist, that aren't just using that algorithm, they are deliberately either suppressing mainstream opinion and fact in order to amplify false information and disinformation, and that the people who are benefiting are those who have maligned interest in our country?
Yeah, absolutely. I thank my honourable friend for that. He's right. All of these algorithms now have hidden interests, sometimes just to increase use, but sometimes these may stray into, I think we all strongly suspect, political agendas. It's remarkable, actually, how powerful this part of the online world really is. My personal view is that it's not dissimilar to the R number during COVID, in that if you see a diverse enough set of content, your worldview will have enough overlap with other people that it will tend to converge. And in the old days, the 6 o'clock news or the news on the radio provided us with shared content that made that all of us heard, whether we agreed or not, and it anchored us to a narrative that we all shared together. Now, increasingly, we're in these echo chambers of reality where we're getting information that pertains to be news, reactions that pertain to be from human beings in our communities, that reinforce certain views. And more, it's capable that our number becomes greater than 1. And slowly our worldviews diverge further and further and further. And an experiment like this on a society has never been carried out before, but it strikes me as it could be extremely harmful. And while we're exploring this theme, I'd like to just point to the opposite potential. In Taiwan, when their digital minister took office, trust in government was at 9%. 9%. They carried out a project creating a digital platform that reversed the algorithm. So instead of prioritising content based on engagement, which is a good proxy for how polarising or divisive it is, they prioritised the algorithm for how strongly it resonated with both sides of the political divide. And the stronger a sentiment was bridging between those two extremes, the more it was prioritised. And so instead of people competing to become more and more extreme to play to their own audience, they competed to make sentiments and statements that were more and more bridging across the divide. And in the end, as this matured, they're able to start to say things like, once a sentiment receives 85% agreement and approval, we, the government, will take it on as a goal. We'll work out how to get there, but we will take that as a goal from the public to say that we should be shooting for it. And by the end of that project, public trust in government was at 70%. These algorithms are powerful. They can be powerful for good. They can be powerful for ill. What we need to make sure is that they're actually safe for us as a society. And that should be the minimum standard. And finally, we can therefore imagine harms that apply on a societal level, but come through interaction. And that, I would say, is where we start to treat machines as if they are members of our society, people. When I first started exploring this, I thought that we hadn't seen this yet. And then I realised that we have. These are bots on social media. They're fake accounts. But we don't know that they're not human beings. They're not verified as human beings. And we can't help but start to believe and trust what we see. And it is only, I would say, a matter of time before these bots become more and more sophisticated and more agendered, more able to build relationships with us and to influence us even more deeply. This is a dangerous threshold, and it points to the need for us to deal with it in a sophisticated way. So what next? I think it's critical that, first of all, we start to develop tools. I mean, technically speaking, these are models that classify and quantify these hazards to individual people and to us as a society, so we can understand what is hazardous and what is not. And then, based on that, we can start to build tools and models that allow us to either validate products as safe, and they should, I agree, be safe by design, or to provide protective features. Already, some companies are developing protection algorithms that can detect content that is illegal or indeed hazardous in various different ways, and then provide a trigger to an operating system to, for example, mask that, make it blurred or opaque, either at the screen level or at the camera level. Rapidly, these tools are becoming more and more capable, but they're not being deployed. And at the moment, there's very little incentive for them to be deployed. If, for example, we were to standardize interfaces or sockets of some type in the software environment for these protective tools to be plugged in to operating systems or backends, then we could create a market to develop more and more accurate and capable software. In the world of physical safety, we use this principle called state-of-the-art. In contrast to how we might all understand that term, it doesn't mean the cutting edge of technology. The term state-of-the-art rather means safety features that are common enough that they should be adopted as standard, and we should expect to have them. A really good example of this, well, the automotive industry is a great example, and perhaps the easiest one for me to point to is anti-lock brakes. These started out as a real luxury feature in high-end vehicles, but as they became more and more affordable and accessible, they rolled out into more and more cars, and now they come as standard in all cars. And you would not be allowed to sell a car if it didn't have that in, because it doesn't meet the state of the art. If we were to apply a similar principle to online protection software, that would mean that tech companies with capable protections would have a guaranteed market, and that the digital product manufacturers or service providers would have to keep up. And that would drive both innovation, but also uptake. These are already practices in industry. They cost the public purse nothing. They generate growth, high-value jobs, and national capabilities. Making the internet safe in the right way doesn't close it down. It creates freedoms and it opens it up. Freedom to trust what you're seeing, freedom to use it without being hurt, freedom to rely on it without endangering our national security. Another parallel, we wouldn't dream of building a balcony without a railing. If we had built one, we wouldn't decide that the only way to make it safe would be to declare that the balcony was for only for use by adults. It still wouldn't be safe. Adults and children alike would inevitably come to harm. And many of our regulations wouldn't allow it. In fact, the railing must reach a certain height, it must withstand certain forces, it must be designed with factors of safety, it must be maintained, we'd have an inspection to make sure it's safe. Someone designing or opening a building with an unprotected, unbarrier balcony could easily expect to go to prison. So we've all come to expect our built environment to be safe in that way, and having made it robustly safe for adults, it's also largely safe for children. If we build good standards and regulation, all of us can navigate the digital world safely and freely. Likewise, we need to build the institutions to ensure fast and dynamic enforcement. For services, there are precedents for good enforcement. We've seen great examples where, for example, sites haven't complied. TCP ports for the payment system have been turned off instantly. That's a really strong motivation for a website to comply. It's fast, it's dynamic, it's robust, and it's very quickly reversible. You can turn the TCP port back on, and they can once again accept payments. We need this kind of fast, dynamic enforcement if we're going to keep up with a fast and adaptive world working around us. And while I'm on institutions, I'd like to also point out, and I wouldn't be surprised if my honourable friend, the member for Rugby, expands on this. When television and radio came into existence, we built the BBC so that we would have a trusted source of some of these services. It kept us safe, but in the end it also ended up projecting our influence around the world. We need to once again build the institutions or expand them and the infrastructure to provide digital services in our collective interest. Oh, well.
He's making a very good debate. He should maybe consider a career in TED Talks after this. I think there have been a number of competitor platforms been tried. There's been Blue Sky as an alternative to Wex, but the take-up isn't sustained. And you do slightly wonder if the monopoly that some of these online platforms have now is just so well embedded that people have become out of habit, quite familiar and attached to them. And there is a tension, I think, with members in this House, and we must all feel it at times, about whether we should or shouldn't be on some of these platforms or not. But the fact is that there is a need for mainstream voices to occupy these spaces to make sure that we don't concede to extremes of any political spectrum. But we are always going to be disadvantaged if the algorithm is driven towards those extremes and not to the mainstream. So I just kind of test the principle of an online BBC versus whether or not there should be a more level playing field for mainstream content on the existing platforms.
Yes, I thank you for his point. And of course, he's right. If we regulate for safety, then we don't need to worry about the ecosystem needing these good actors to displace it. But at the same time, these good actors would have a competitive and valuable role to play. And I don't want to undervalue the currency of trust. And institutions like the BBC are so robustly trustworthy that they have a very unique value to offer, even if we do manage to create a safe ecosystem or market of online services. So I'm convening a group of academics to start trying to build the models I discussed as the foundation for technical standards for safe digital products. I'd like to take the opportunity to invite the Minister to engage the department in this work. It's vital both for the safety of each of us and our children as individuals and for the security and the resilience of our society. And I'd also take this opportunity to invite anybody in that technical space of academia or industry exploring some of these models and tools to get in touch with me if they see this and they're interested. Only by taking assertive action across all levels of technical, regulatory and legal governance can we ensure the safety of citizens. Only by expanding our institutions can we provide meaningful enforcement of this, designing and building online products, tools and infrastructure. But if we do these things, the internet will be more open, more secure, more private, more valuable and more accessible to all of us. Good regulation, I would put it, is the key to a safe and open internet.